Hey guys, BJ the Brave here, back with another Warpforge, not deck guide. It's this time I'm bringing you a tier list for the brand new Astra Militarum, or if you're an old fart like me, the Imperial Guard. I'm also joined by my Alliance teammate Slither. Hi buddy, how you doing?
Hey, how's it
Welcome.
going?
So we're gonna Slither has been playing a lot of the faction as have I since they released. So what we're gonna do is gonna talk about our experience of the keywords, and then we're going to talk about a 1 to 5 star system basically. 1 is an unplayable card, 2 is a bad card, 3 is situational. It can be good in the right situation, or it can just be a bit meh. 4 are the good cards. These are like the cards you really want to be collecting, you really want to be building the sort of mainstay of your decks around. And then 5 stars are those kind of must-have S tier cards that really define the meta. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to rate the whole faction from front to back, and yeah, so let's jump into it. You ready, Slither?
Yeah, let's do it. We got a lot of cards to get
We got
through,
a
huh?
lot to cover, my friend. We got a lot to cover, so let's go. So let's start with, as I said, let's talk about. We've had a week now with the. I might turn my camera off as well, but we've had a week with some of the key, what they call faction keywords, right? So when it comes to duty, my thoughts on duty is that ultimately it's a pretty underwhelming and pretty bad faction mechanic, and unfortunately, I had this fear because of our experience with Sisters of Battle. It's very similar to Prey. It's a cool ability. It's one you really want to make work, but it doesn't fit very well with the game. Like, you've got to play a card. You're basically playing a unit, and then you've got to kind of wait a turn so you can attack next turn, and then instead of attacking, you trigger duty, and it's like this game doesn't work like that. It's too tempo based, it's too fast, and so it's very hard to get duty off. Now, obviously, we do have a warlord, um, which I think is one of the best design warlords, by the way, in the game, who does enable you to essentially use duty like a flank, right? So you can play it straight away. So I think when we talk about the cards with duty, we've kind of almost got to go, what is it like generically, and then we can sort of put that caveat on, well, if you're using Denkler, then it's much better, right? But I think overall, without Denkler's ability, most of the duty cards are almost unplayable, if I'm honest, especially kind of if they cost more than 5. What do you think to that
Yeah,
analysis?
I think I generally agree with that. I think there's a couple standouts that you do tend to get your duty off. I mean, like the humble shock trooper. That one damage ping is actually pretty good, and like obviously it's not big enough of a threat that your opponent's going to kill it every turn. Um, the astropath. I mean, his like stat line is like kind of designed to survive and get his duty off, but yeah, I would say outside of that, you need to yeah, you have to give it flank to get duty off.
Yeah. It feels like overall as a mechanic, it's somewhere between bad to unplayable for me, and it's kind of like in a Denkler deck, then it becomes suddenly like situational to good, right? Like you get to pick the duty cards that work. With that, you get to sort of think, right, which ones do I want to use that hero power on? You can refill it, but you're probably going to use it 2 or 3 times in the game, and you've got to be selective about it. All the other duties are just rarely going to go off, quite frankly. What about Regiment? Regiment is kind of like Mob from the Orkz. Trigger an effect after another friendly unit does a ranged attack. Now, personally, I found this to be way stronger than Mob, and I found it to be really good. I found it to be quite effective, and I think the more powerful decks will be quite heavily based around this. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you got some pretty powerful effects on a faction that's like really good at going wide. So I think like you're not even like building like a regiment deck per se. You just like every Imperial Guard deck is going to be using a lot of the really strong regiment effects.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and the fact that, it's easy, it's almost the opposite of duty, isn't it? Like, it's really easy to trigger. Like, duty is almost impossible to trigger. Regiment, because your warlord attacking triggers regiment, you can slam a Lehman Russ down, attack with your warlord, boom, you've already got one regiment off. So, it seems to just be a bit more functional and practical. Alright, the other one, which is not a keyword as such, but I do think it's a feature of the faction, and it's something that is lends itself to like a playstyle, which is the kind of, which I'm just going to call ramp in a word. I think this is the first faction where we've got we can build genuine ramp decks, right? We've got the 1-drop that can discount cars. We've got things like full throttle. We've got the 4-drop stratagem that can bring out a vehicle that costs 2 less. So we've basically got ramp mechanics in the faction. How have you found those cards and mechanics?
So I think when Guard first had its revealed, everyone was expecting like was it like double like full throttle into high command into like Lehman Russ like turn 2 or something, and like I think outside of like the odd game that you can't really build decks just for that. But I think stuff like they are able to like ramp their units out. I mean, I think like the Feyborn is just like really solid card. You can put it in every deck. You can pick something later and ramp it out, or you can like pick something so you can just play it next turn. Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I think that's it really in terms of like the mechanics and stuff. So let's get into our tier list. All right, so first up, let's talk about the unplayable cards. Now, one thing that I think is pretty good is that I think as a faction overall, there aren't that many bad cards. Like, I think the number of bad and unplayable cards are definitely getting fewer every time they release a faction, and that can only be a good thing for the game. But I have picked out a few here that I think fall in the virtually unplayable. Maybe someone can find a use, but I think these are virtually unplayable cards. So I've gone for the Basilisk. And now what I'll do is just show you here. So the Basilisk is a long-range blast 3, which isn't in itself isn't bad. And I kind of wondered, like, as a beginner, yeah, I could imagine you could play this before you get your Lehman Russes. You know, you could just play it. It wouldn't be the end of the world, but in any like really good deck, I think that this is just not really playable. You're just never going to get to swing with it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've tried comboing this with the Vox operator, but then it kind of feels like more like a overcosted bombast. Like, yeah, I don't think you generally run this. You might pick this off the the Discover Vehicle card, but yeah, like I'd say not a good card at all.
Yeah, exactly. So we're in agreement there. Now the other ones I had as the unplayables were let's just put this back down here. I had the at all costs. I think this is an interesting card, and if you listen to did you listen to the podcast with Andreas?
I listened to some of it. I'm not sure if I heard what he said about at all costs.
He talked about this card, and I liked his thought process for the design of it. Like that, you can be losing, and it's a card that could bring you back into the game where you both think, right, this game's settled. And then you could play this, and there are scenarios or situations where this could bring you back into the game. I like that, It's a great point. You sort of draw into this. You can imagine drawing. What's the 4-drop that replenishes your entire energy?
High command.
High command. Imagine that's one of the 3 that you draw. So now that costs you 1 energy to refill your energy, and then you've got all these cheap units to play out and stuff. So you can imagine these wacky turns, these crazy games that kind of stories would be told for decades about. And that's what this card is. What it's not a consistent kind of meta card that you could build a serious deck around. It's so I think this is virtually unplayable. I also wonder that if you're under 10 health and you spend 5 energy just drawing, haven't you just lost?
Yeah, those 3 cards have to be exactly what you need right then and there.
Exactly. Like Reclaim the Stars, right? You play it costs you 7 energy, but it discounts things by 5. So you can design a deck where you could play your whole hand out if you Reclaim the Stars. Whereas I feel like you play this and still be like, yeah, I could maybe play 1 card that's cheaper, but I've still lost.
Yeah, exactly. I think 10 HP is just too low. I mean,
yeah,
if you're against Eldar, that's like a Warlord Bash and a Wailing Doom away, so 15. Probably doesn't matter what you draw.
15? What do you think 15? Would 15? I think 15 would be much better.
I think it would be playable at 15. Yeah.
Yeah, 15 would be much more reasonable. I think, yeah, 10's just too close to the wire, isn't it? It's like...
Yeah. Also, I mean, a lot of decks can kill you from like above 10. You know, you can go from 11, 12 to 0 in a single turn. Like, I think I had a game against Swarmlord. I picked this from the LCS power. It's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get so low, I get to use this, and like it did like 20 damage to me in one turn anyway. I never got to play it.
Yeah. And then the last one I had as unplayable was Press the Attack, because given everything we've just said about duty and how bad it is, like, the idea that you're then going to... Not only have you played a unit, survived with the unit to not attack, play duty, but then you're going to survive again to have it press the attack, go off, and then duty again. I mean, what game are we playing here? Like, when does that happen?
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to play a card like this, you would just play Denkler. I feel like I don't know. I don't know. I could never think of a deck where this would work. I guess in theory you'd run it in a Denkler deck, but you don't need to because you're playing Denkler. He already has that ability.
Yeah, exactly. Like you just use the Warlord power. So there's an epic card as well, but I think it's epic. It's an epic fail. I think that's what we call a purple that gets 1 star. That's 2 epic fails we've got in the 1 stars. All right, we can always move them around, slither if when we look at the other layers. Like if we think actually that's bad or unplayable, we can do that. Should we move on to the 2 stars?
Yeah, sure.
So 2 out of 5. These are bad cards. Like this means that there will still be decks where you'll see the odd one of these cards in the deck, and but overall, ultimately, I think that they're bad cards. I think that there are better options and better things to be doing in the faction. So the first one I've put in there is actually one of the ones I found harder to rate, which is the Shock Troop Sergeant. But again, we're starting to see a theme here, because technically with Denkler, this could be quite a powerful turn 3, right? E3, like you play this, you use Denkler's ability, and you think, yeah, that's a pretty hot tempo play. We just put 6 health worth of units out on E3. That's pretty good. But outside of that specific play, this card is absolute trash.
Yeah, I think for Denkler it's like it can be like a mini standard bearer, but yeah, I think for the other 2 Warlords you probably wouldn't play this.
And that's the problem, is even in Denkler, it's like, yeah, but then you've used your Denkler ability on this, and actually the 4-drops are much, much better for using Denkler's ability, and you haven't got the energy to recharge his ability and play it on a 4-drop. So in a way, I feel like this is a bit of a trap card even for Denkler.
Oh, potentially. I think I would argue maybe one thing with Denkler decks, like, I don't know if you ever fought against a Denkler and they put down a duty unit and you just can't kill it that turn. Then each turn he keeps like refilling it and reusing the duty. There is like a little bit of a strength in like a free drop that you can snowball and like pump out a shock trooper each turn and just be super obnoxious. But yeah, that only in Denkler, and yeah, the free drops are just quite good in this faction anyway.
Yeah, exactly. We've got a lot of good 3-drops. That's another reason why I've put this in bad. I mean, yeah, it would be high 3-drop, probably high situational in a Denkler deck, but in any other deck, it's a bad card, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, now this one's interesting because I know a lot of people probably looked at this originally and thought, oh, it's the Helldrake Strike of the faction. But Helldrake Strike is a good card. This is a... I don't know what your experience has been with this one, but I found it to be really bad. What do you think?
Yeah, you would never main deck it. The only time you pick it is if you're playing Ursula and you need a little bit more like face damage, and you hope you cross your fingers and hope they don't play the units out.
Yeah.
That's the only time I would play it.
Yeah.
I don't know. One less energy than Helldrake, but it hits 1 less target, and the target can be the Warlord. It's a bad burn card because too few targets, and it's a bad control card for the same reason.
And you and I are often playing like top 20 whatever on the ladder. I try to think like if I was a beginner and I was new to the faction, like this is not an unplayable card. Like I could totally see you putting this in your beginner deck to start with until you get better cards, and it will do a job. But it's not a good card, is it?
Yeah, no, it's not good. I mean, the only thing is with guard, outside of your like one flank, you can struggle at just like killing the enemy's board. So it does do that, but yeah, like still not. Even though that's a weakness of guard, like I wouldn't put this in just to just for removal.
So the Armored Squadron is a card that I want to play around with a bit more, to be honest. It's a terrible tempo loss, just like playing Cadia's Stand and Savior Protocols and any other one of these 4 to 5 drops that you just play and do not, get no value the turn you play it, but then you get massive value back later. I do think that the tanks are particularly powerful. There are some particularly powerful tanks. So getting a, like say you play this on 4 and you get a Lehman Russ, which would be 7, you then get to play the Lehman Russ the next turn on 5. Was it worth taking turn 4 off to play a Lehman Russ on 5? I'd say yes in that scenario. But it's no guarantee that you get the Lehman Russ. And I don't know. In a slow control meta, this would be a powerful card, I think. But I think in the way Warpforge tends to work, these fast tempo decks, just don't. I think it's a luxury you just can't afford. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, from a theoretical point of view, there are some vehicles that are like, just looking at the list. So like here's the anti-air one, like the Hydra. Like, one strength of these kind of like discover unit cards is you could pick out vehicles that are like a bit better for who you're fighting, which you wouldn't normally main deck. Like the Hydra is a bit of a weird card.
That's true.
But if you're against Eldar, you could pick it out. That
yeah,
that's going to do some work.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So I think like the ramp and also the discover effect, in theory, makes it like it could have quite a high ceiling. It's turn 4 to ramp 1 card. Turn 4 is where like the game usually gets going. Even the slow decks will have a 4-drop. Like, yeah, I'm not sure. I like Gaius' ability, so I think it's a good free drop.
Yeah, I mean, I can see games where it is good, but I feel like overall it's a bad card and a trap card. And again, if you're new to the game, you're probably looking at that thinking, oh yeah, I'm gonna get this big tank out cheap, but then you're gonna fall behind and it might not work out. But that's one I'm not. I have to say I'm not sure. Like I do want to try it more. This is a card that you've played a bit and I've played a little bit. And I don't know if I'm again. I don't know whether I'm being harsh. It's definitely not an unplayable card. I just feel like there's a lot of other better things to be doing with 2. But it maybe this is a 3. What do you think?
I'm not sure. I did in like a super aggro list. I do kind of like it. I mean, concussive is a strong effect. It's just it is. I think part of the problem is Warpforge is a game where having a unit down that you can reliably buff next. Having a unit down reliably that you can buff the next turn like just doesn't always happen.
No. And we've got a 2-drop stratagem where we can just do 2 damage and give it and stun something, which kind of is what this does. Now the argument is that this is a permanent buff, so you could technically get more than 1 lot of value out of it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that puts it on a par with the.
I mean, it is interesting sometimes. Like, you might use this to like buff something up to like be able to trade, and it leaves it at like 2 HP, and the enemy warlords look at it. It's like, oh damn it, I'm going to be stunned next turn. I got to clear it.
I think something like the Chimera is a good target for it.
Yeah, I think you want something like a little bit chunky, like a Scout Sentinel or Ogren, or well, maybe not an Ogren. Yeah, I think you're kind of ideally you want this on like your kind of 4 or 5, later game drops.
Yeah. Actually, the 5-drop Ogren would be good with this. It's interesting, isn't it?
Oh, actually, I would say the concussive and blast thing doesn't stack for some reason.
Nah, I don't understand that. It doesn't everywhere else in the game.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
we'll keep it at the 2-star for now, but it is potentially a low 3-star one. Potentially, don't know. Then we got the Regimental Doctrine, which says heal 2 to your units and trigger their regiment. What regiment abilities are we trying to trigger with this? Heal's not bad. Heal is not bad, because that does heal your Warlord too. But I think of other cards like Arda's Nails and like that's cost 2 energy. This one costs 3, and I just don't know that I really like. I just don't think like a lot of regiments are like 1 pings, and are you really holding this for when you've got things like Lehman Russes now? I don't think so. Like,
Yeah,
I just don't see when I'd want to use this in a game.
yeah. It's a card where you just don't. There's not really an obvious time to use it. Yeah, I mean, normally as a healer, you just look for this. If you like need a tiny bit of healing, you're like, okay, fine, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Outside of that, yeah, not very good.
All right. So next up, we got the shock troopers, and this one says deal 1 damage to a random enemy. To a random enemy for each friendly unit. So, you know, if you've got like a particular go wide type of thing going on, then in theory that could be pretty good. But I also think there's going to be a lot of games where it's just sitting in your hand and you're like, I could play this and do 2 damage, but why am I playing this card for that? I think the combo wombo dream is going to be rare, is what I'm trying to say, and that's what ultimately why I put it as a bad card. What do you
I
think?
think you cut out for me though. Yeah, I feel that there's just a lot of other good two cost stratagems. Like, I guess like this can do 8 random damage.
Yeah.
If you've got like a footer completely wide board, but
Yeah.
like I think if you've already achieved that, you probably won the game.
You're already winning, right? So it's like a win more card. That's what I was thinking. There's a few cards like that. Anyway, let's talk about the Commissar then. I wasn't sure about this one. You know, I think part of the problem this card has... So the stats are alright. They're alright. For a 4-drop that is kind of like giving another ability to other things, I think it's pretty good stats. If it was just purely for trading, it'd be slightly under on stats, but it can't be cheated. It's okay. I think the main problem this card's got is everything we've already said about duty, right? And the fact that duty is not that good a mechanic, and therefore a support card to a not good a mechanic that's not very good just ultimately makes this not very good.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think every few games where they put Commissar in their like beginner Denkler deck, and be like, oh, I've got so much duty effects. Commissar's gonna, do some work, and he just never does. Like, you never get that armor.
And even
Commissar's always just stuck in your hand, like waiting.
And even if you do, he's a 4-drop, right? So let's say you've put a 3 or another 4-drop down and you've managed to get duty off or whatever. I mean, chances are it's only going to have like 3 health or something anyway. So how good is the armor on a 3 health unit, really? You know? So it just, I don't know, I don't feel like the synergy is great for this guy. It's a shame. Nice artwork.
Yeah, cool card, but...
What about the Valkyrie? Now, Valkyrie is one of the very, very few flyers that the faction has.
I think it's the only fire.
Yeah, you might be right.
Yeah.
Flyer. And it has got 8 health for 7, which is good. But outside of the 8 health, unfortunately, again, it's a duty ability.
Yeah, a very particular duty ability as well.
It's very particular. I feel like it almost forces you to make misplays just to get the ability off. Like,
yeah. Almost feels like you would need a really wide board with a lot of shock troopers so you can like perfectly line up the damage value so you can like get this thing off. But like, if you could do that, then you're already winning.
Yeah.
And it's also competing with the glorious Lehman Russ,
which is just no competition.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's unplayable, and I think as a flyer, it's a bit annoying, and it's not. Certain decks would struggle to get rid of it. You know, it's a bit difficult to get rid of with 8 health and flyer, but I don't think I can give it more than 2 stars.
Yeah, it's annoying. You think if you took it, you'd be taking it specifically because it's a flyer and not really for the duty effect.
Now the Manticore is frustrating because I like that it's an AoE tank, but unfortunately it is. How the hell do you ever trigger this?
So I think this is like the first vehicle where like you have to play it with Vox Operator to like really make it work.
Yeah, I agree. We're going to come on to the Vox Operator, guys, but it's a 2-drop that when it's on the board, friendly tanks gain flank. But I always think, like, all of that stuff sounds very sexy and very cool and all the rest of it, but, you know, you've got to judge a card on its own. Like, you've got to judge it on its own merit. Do you know what I mean? Like otherwise, every card would be good, wouldn't it? If we're saying like we play it with something that gives it flank, yeah. If you give every card flank, then the card's good. But the card's not good.
Okay, but what if I told you I once someone played a rock invasion to me, and I actually had Manticore Fox Operator, and I managed to wipe the rock invasion? Would that change your mind about the card?
I just, the thing is, my head goes to how do I design the deck, right? So I think what you've got to do, like, I feel like Vox Operator. What you could maybe run a Manticore in a Vox Operator deck, and you could build a deck that is like you play a Vox Operator a bit like a sort of GSC deck where you have multiple mini combos that you can play for. I think if you just got like this one specific combo, then it's not going to be consistent. But if you
Yeah,
build it
yeah.
where it's multiple, so you have one of these, you have the 5 drop, and it's like, then maybe it comes together a bit. You get something useful off. I don't know. I think this ability is one you really want to see because we do struggle with AoE, and it has blast itself. But at the end of the day, I think for 6 energy, you're putting something down that only has 6 health, no armor, and it's going to get traded against 2 melee. It's just going to die to like a
Yeah.
4-drop flanker or something. It's going to be a horrible tempo loss
The
for you.
the damage range is also a little bit wide. You could potentially low roll. If it's 2 to 4 and everything's at 3 HP, you might not cleanly like clear everything.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I think you could maybe do one off in your like Vox Operator deck potentially. There's like a bit of a tech card, but probably that's probably its best use.
Yeah. So the Taurox is a weird one because it's a bit understated, but it trades down nicely. Like anything up to 5 that's been played so far, the Taurox can usually trade down pretty nicely with. Terrible at trading upwards, but I guess the idea here is like these low to the ground infantry decks are what you would play this in, and that seems to make sense because those decks are pretty powerful and do pretty well. But then this puts a load of shock troopers in your hand. I was wondering whether you play the 6-drop that when you regiment it makes something in your hand cheaper. So do you follow this up with? So do you play this? Attack with everything, put all these guys in your hand, and then play the 6-drop, and then make everything cheaper. And that's what I was wondering if it was the idea of it. But what do you think?
Yeah, I did try playing this card in like an aggro led deck, and like I think coming out, as someone that's played a lot of the Magus deck, I think when you first look at it, you're like, oh wow, this is just like the 3-drop from GSC that gives you the Neophyte, and that's so broken. It's such a good card.
Then you realise it's not.
Yeah, this is not quite as good. I mean, the Neophytes are a lot better than Shock Troopers, although I don't think Shock Troopers are a bad card. But also, GSC have like stealth setups into their Taurox.
Yeah.
Whereas Guard, you kind of have to be ahead and then play this, which doesn't hit the board whatsoever, to then refill your hand.
Yeah.
And then this one is, even when I've got this off, I've ended up with a handful of Shock Troopers, and maybe I've played out like 1 or 2, but they've not. I don't think Shock Troopers scale super well into the late game unless you have like move, and like have some crazy combo ready. But
that's the thing; they don't scale super well. I mean, you could say it's a good way of, you can run out of cards, can't you? Unless you're playing Ursula, you can run out of cards in this faction. Whereas Taurox is giving you cards. It might be one we need to play with a bit more, but my thing so far with it has been I think it's a bad card.
Yeah, I think also just other good 5-drops as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, the Bonehead, even the Psycho is pretty good.
Exactly. The next one is the Master of Ordnance. I was kind of surprised that I was putting this in bad. I thought this might end up being a pretty good card, but then I realised it's just kind of like win more, isn't it? Because it's like at the end of your turn, deal 3 damage to a random enemy for each friendly vehicle in play. You got to ask, okay, what friendly vehicles are we running? How much do they cost? How many of them do I want to have down for this to be worth playing? You're going to be playing it at something like E10 because the good tanks and stuff that you want to. But it's like, look, if I've got 3 Lehman Russells on the board, I've already won, right? Why the hell do I need this? So I just can't. It's one of those that initially sounds good, and then you actually think through how you'd play it, and it's like, if this is ever good, you've already won the game. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, I think you need that turn where you have a tank survive, and then you play like another like an autocannon, and then this, and then then it's a good card. But you're already ahead, weren't you?
I mean, like, unless you're in like playing gas fatigue, and it's like turn 17, and you're like, you've saved this for the end game, and you're gonna do this ridiculous play 4 or 5 vehicles plus the Master of Ordnance. Obviously that would be decent, but
Because you'd have 2 armor by that point anyway.
it's just a crap. It's just not a good card, is it?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's great, and also plenty of other good free drops as well.
I'm almost wondering, is it unplayable? Is it a 1-star? It's
I mean,
terrible stats as well for a free drop. I mean,
technically you can guarantee its effect, I guess.
yeah.
But also, you don't get to see where the effect goes.
It's random, isn't it?
Yeah, so you might. I mean, I have had someone play against me, and it did do alright, but I think that was a turn where like their big tank survived the turn before.
So they'd already won them.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was a pretty it was a pretty bad spot either way. But that I think this like sealed my fate somewhat.
So any of those that you want to move? I'm talked you through. Or should we look at the 3 drops?
I mean, I guess if we're going true to the word situational, then Shock Trooper Sergeant is situationally good in Den Club. But like, I mean, I don't know if that. I mean, I'd probably still say it's a bad card for the rest of the Warlords, and like you could cram a lot of cards into situational. We've got, I think I'd agree with everything. Maybe Manticore, maybe Shock Trooper Sergeant could be situational, but it's not a hill I would die on.
Okay, let's have a look at the 3 drops. 3 stars. So 3 stars, these are situational cards. This means that they're in the right specific context and situation. They can be good. But a lot of the time they can sort of just be a little bit meh. That's kind of like the idea of the 3 drop. So the first one I've got, this is a card that I haven't made work yet, but in theory, mechanized infantry. So my thought is, it's a shock trooper. It's pretty good. Cost 2. Obviously, if you're deploying 3 of them, you could argue that's cost you 6. Now, what point do I have to get this card down to for it to suddenly feel like good value? And I feel like if you get it down to something like 4, would you pay 4 energy for 3 shock troopers? I think you would, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's pretty good. I think
3 Vanguard shock. I mean, you pay 3 energy for a Gretchen mob, right? Which gives you 3 Vanguards, and they're what, 2 health? Whereas if you pay 1 more, that's 4 energy for 3 shock troopers at that's 9 health worth of Vanguard. I think that suddenly becomes really good, actually, a really good value. So I was feeling like in a tank heavy deck, this has got to be a good card, hasn't it?
I mean, this card is interesting. I think that there's 2 ways you can play it. Either like you play out some early vehicles and you just play it as soon as you can. So like ideally like E5. I think the earliest you could play it is E5, I think, because you could play like autocannon then Sentinel or something. Or do you just like keep trying to ramp it down until it gets to like 0, and then you can do some like try and do some like shenanigans with it, with like move, or like use it to like shield a Chimera or something.
I think you made a good point that unlike a Gretchen mob, you can't just play it when you want, and it is a bit later, and I think the games I've played with it has felt quite clunky. Maybe the way to play this is to just have 1 copy and accept that it's more of a late game card. That you're going to play like on E8 or E9, you're going to play this down with something big. And your opponent's going to be like, I can't deal with it because I'd love to play this flanker, this Vet Stormboy, but you've now got 3 Vanguards blocking your way to it, and well played. Maybe that's how you're meant to play the Manticore, for example. If you played, I don't know, maybe it was E9, we got this down to 3, you play Manticore in this, that could be good.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, that makes me want to build like a whole new deck. That's a cool concept.
I feel like this has got something cool. There is some. I need more time with this card. I think you made a good point that you do need to run early vehicles in order for this to work. You can't just play all the late game stuff because you need to be making this cheaper. So yeah, you're going to need your autocannons, you're going to need your, I don't know, probably your Scout Sentinels, and I don't know, I think like a mid-range vehicle thing, this could be good. But I haven't found the deck in which it's good in.
Yeah, it is a spell that I don't mind getting off Ursula. Like, If I've got a hand where I don't have a six, I've got a nice curve and I see this, I might be like, okay, I can play that on 6.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Yeah, I think it's fair.
All right. Well, let's move on. Next up, we've got the thermal weaponry. I keep going up and down on this card. Give Blast 3 to a friendly troop. If it's a vehicle, give it armor as well. Now, we all play Scorcher Assault in Orkz, or we play, what's the flames in Sisters?
Cleansing Flame.
Cleansing Flames. They cost 4 energy, and they essentially do this sort of thing where you kind of got a 3 power blast, right? Like you can damage 3 to 3 adjacent units, roughly speaking. Now, this has got a downside in that you've got to put on a vehicle, and obviously those cards you can place them where you want, whereas when this is on a vehicle, if your opponent's got a Vanguard down, you've got to hit that, so you don't get to place it exactly where you want it. But that said, it is also then giving your vehicle armor as well, so there's a kind of upside to it. I feel like there are situations where it's good, but it can also feel very meh, and it can just sit in your hand if you haven't got that situation.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of the card spells, they feel really nice when you get them off Ursula just when you need them. But I don't know if you would like main deck them. I mean, Blast 3 is a nice number. I mean, there's a lot of stealth units at 3 HP that you can kill with this. It's just, will you have the board and then have the right curve where you can like set this all up?
And it's good against guard. You know, if it's going to be a guard meta, then that means if you're running guard and you're playing against a lot of guard, then you will have tanks that you can put this on, and it will do really well against guard infantry. So it's kind of pretty hot right now, but I don't know whether it's a bad card or a situational card. I don't think it's good.
Yeah, I think it needs more. Yeah, I think I could play with it a little bit more.
Alright, let's have a look at this one. Move, move, move. So basically, you give flank to all your infantry troops. Play your infantry down, then you play this. Kind of like the Crump de Gits of the Orkz. This has won me some games, like late game, like from E8, E7, E8, E9-ish. You can play this, and it can be pretty powerful. But
yeah, it's a card that does scale well into late game, but it's not a good early game card.
no, it's not good early. Although you can use it with something like the Flamer on E5 for a nice AOE. You know, 2 to 3 damage across the whole board on E5 is not bad.
I think actually I do have a bit of a hot take with like move, move, move and Vox Operator, because those are the two like give flank cards. So guard only have like one like true flanker. I kind of feel like if you don't, if your deck is able to come back, you kind of need to either put Vox Operator in, or you need to put move, move, move in. Because otherwise, I think guard can just end up being a faction where like either you're trying to play so late with like Siege Warfare and stuff, and you don't care, or it's going to be a case of like you lose the board and then that's it.
Yeah.
So I feel like move, move, move can be your like comeback mechanic with like the right, with the right cards.
That's the thing is if you're running lots of early aggro, early infantry units, like an Ursula or something, and then you treat this card like your late game, it can actually be pretty good in that. Scales really well, like you said.
The only problem when you run it in aggro list is that you tend to play out all your units on curve, and then you've got this in your hand, and then you don't. You just kind of have to hope you get something really good.
Like a banner.
Yeah, I mean banner E6 banner move 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 pretty good. I mean you can use the G. You can technically do like 8 damage because you can like buff yourself up +2, buff the shock trooper up 2. You feel like a venom crawler or something in theory.
Yeah, exactly. This guy I've not really used. I don't think he's amazing though. Stats are okay. Again, he's a duty. The regiment part is pretty good because obviously the units that are on the board attack, and then you get to draw a card. So I think it's pretty good. I think that's pretty good. I think the duty's like, again, if it's your warlord, if you're playing Denkler, sure. Would you run this guy outside of Denkler?
I mean, even in Denkler, like, you play this guy on 8. I mean, in what universe could you, like, play him on 8 and then use his duty? To, like, I don't even know.
Yeah, I'm not going to attack with my 8 melee. I'm going to duty.
Yeah,
Fine.
it's almost a bit like the big sisters problem, where, like, you don't want these big units for prey because you know
exactly.
you want to use the stat line. So this guy you don't want to use his duty. But I mean,
That's
his
exactly
regiment effect is good.
That's exactly it. His regiment, it's purely for his regiment, isn't it? And to be honest, when we were looking at that aggro deck the other night, the solar deck, maybe this guy belongs in that deck because solar runs out of troops, whereas Ursula can use her warlord talent to keep a handful. Maybe something like solar aggro. Maybe this guy's the top end of it. Because you can draw. I quite like that actually. Wouldn't mind trying that out.
I feel like if you're ahead, or even just like a little bit ahead, and you can get this guy out and draw multiple cards, like it's pretty huge, and
Yeah.
he's a respectable body.
It keeps you going, doesn't it? A bit. It just extends your ability, your reach, your ability to keep going with that aggro. So again, he's not a bad card. I wouldn't say he's a bad card, but I don't think I can confidently call it good either.
I think you probably would have to play this in Denkler, just purely because he's like a big infantry that you can give flank to.
Yeah,
I
think Denkler, maybe Solar, but more just for the regiment there. I don't know.
I think I have had a deck with him in, and he's felt like it is nice, you know, drawing like 3-4 cards off of like a good board state, but
For sure.
he is an 8-drop that doesn't impact the board, so it can be awkward trying to. Usually, you have to like let a couple things live when you play him.
Yeah.
Which is always the awkward thing.
All right, let's whiz through a few more. We got the Vanquisher. Again, with the Vox, obviously, this is quite nice that you could potentially bring this guy on and just do 8 damage to face. Or if you're playing against Orkz with armor on, you could do like 11 damage or something face, which would be pretty funny. But realistically, that's not how this card's getting used. I think it's a pretty solid statted card. I think it's got a good duty ability, but it's duty again, isn't it? Everything we've been saying about duty.
Yeah, I feel like it's not bad. I have run it with the Vox deck, but if anything, it felt a bit too late. Yeah. Like I kind of wanted to play my Vox out a bit earlier rather than wait for E10 for this, even though the effect is good.
Yeah.
I think it's not bad. I think the problem is there's a lot of late game tanks that are quite good, and I feel when you compare it to like Lehman Russ, and then I think Lehman Russ is just a better overall tank. And if you want to go super deep, then you're probably better off with like Rogel Dawns and Baneblades.
Yeah, I agree. Well,
I think
it's
like
chunky,
it's
got the armor, it's hard to kill, so this is a unit where you have actually got a chance of playing it and it's surviving, you know, to be able to use the duty. So that's why I think I had it as a 3 rather than a 2. Hydra's interesting. The Hydra's got regiment, and we've already said regiment is good. If you are playing against flying stuff, I think this card in those matches is pretty good. You've already got your warlord and 1 or 2 units down, and then you just drop this.
Yeah, I mean, Eldar, like, despises this card. I mean, you can have 2 things shoot at the warlord, and you can take out, like, a Crimson Hunter and Fire Prisms. Yeah. There's just, there's also 2 meta factions that don't run any fires. Imperial Card and GSC. So it's like a really good tech card. It's just, I don't know, it's obviously going to be pretty dead until half the meta decks, but like really good into like 2 or 3.
That's I think why I got it situational, because I just thought in the right situation. Yeah, it's the best tech card in the faction, isn't it? You think sort of like if we had sideboarding tournaments, you'd take this card. But like you say, it's not going to be a consistent ladder performer. I don't know if you can. You think 3 is good, or do you think should it be a bad?
I mean, I would say it is situationally very. So I think I would agree with it being 3 stars.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to be games amazing and games where it does nothing. So you know, situational.
Now the Cadian Castellan, I had this in 3. Not sure. I mean, the 6E, I think it's got acceptable stats. Can't be cheated. So good into flyers and things like that. But it does have an interesting regiment ability, and regiment's good. Lower the cost of friendly troops in hand. The thing I found with playing this is that because it costs 6 itself, that if you have if you've got the 1-drops that the ramp cards basically, you generally don't really need this guy because you've already got a Lehman Rush down to 6, which you'd rather play or something like that. Do you see what I mean? So,
Yeah,
but I don't
but
know.
like you can't. It's hard to make the ramp go on a specific troop, so it's more of like a nice little bonus rather than something you're like really trying to like capitalize on. Yeah, I like the stat line. You know, yeah, it can't be cheated. I think I maybe run one of these.
Yeah, I've had one in like some of the bigger tank decks and stuff. All right. I also had the Vengeance Acadia. You've probably used this more than me. What do you think? Do you think 3 stars is about right for this?
Yeah, I think it's good. Like, it is a finisher, and like, God, do you want to go pretty wide, and this is like the best reward for that in a spell. It's good. Like, I think the obvious comparison though is like to the Storm of Fire in Tau, which is only 3 energy, whereas this start to 8.
Yeah, and it's like, do you then keep it in your opening hand? Do you know you will need to be checking it down, but then you're almost playing a card down if you can't trade on the board.
I mean, I think it is nice when you like get it down to. Sometimes there are games where like you're not actually going to get a chance to use this as a finisher, but because so many things have died, you do get the choice to use it. It's just like a little bit of remove,
Yeah,
for free, which is cool.
Yeah, we had that the other day.
So it's like a finisher, but like you don't. It can be a little bit flexible because you know once it's 0 cost, you can use it whenever you want.
Now I had the Bombast Field Gun at 3, and I'm pretty sure you would have this higher. You've used this a lot, so talk to us about this card.
Okay, so why I really liked having the Bombast in my deck, I feel like combos with a Vox Operator, this is like the cheapest thing you can get that has like a really big tempo swing. So this is basically, if you combo this with Vox Operator, this is coming in and either cheating a trade with long range, or it's coming in and doing like a Helldrake strike.
Yeah.
Obviously the trade-off is that you can't really play it on 5 unless you're already quite ahead.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for Vox Operator combos, I think this is probably one of the best for the energy cost.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, because it's like you say, Helldrake strike on a stick, on 2 sticks, right? Because you've got this and the other one. I mean, it's a crazy combo. The problem is that it relies on the combo. Like you just wouldn't want to put this out on its own to just get hit by a Scorpec Destroyer or a possessed Marine. You'd just be like, oh, bad man.
Yeah, I don't know. I climbed a lot with a deck that was looking for this combo in particular.
Yeah.
I mean, it is really strong, but obviously, like I've also like started like smashing my desk when I've got 2 of these in hand, and the Vox Operator is just hiding at the bottom of my deck.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'll have to get back to me in a few weeks. I'll decide if it's like the key to guard and you need it in every deck, or if it's actually bad and you should put something else in.
Alright, I'm going to race through a couple here, and then let me know if you want to add on any of them. I think the Armor Sentinel was a card that I originally looked at and thought was a bad card. And since I built my infantry aggro deck, my Ursula 1, go and check that out if you've not seen that. I think at the point of this coming out, that will have been released, so go and check out that. I started to realise that this card is actually very good in an early regiment, infantry, usually heavy kind of deck. This is a vehicle, but it complements that. It has really good synergy with that. It's regiment, which is a good ability, and people point to its armor, its health, but you know, 4 plus the armor's not. It's not that bad. Like, it's not the end of the world. Like, it's not good having less health than the mana. Obviously, that is the weakness. But I think the armor means that it's not the end of the world, and you can often end up with like a ridiculous range attack here. So the trade up ability or the burn ability into the enemy wall is really good. And if you've already got shock troopers down and things like that, I feel like that card can be quite strong similarly in that mid-range part of the game. Scout Sentinel's just a fairly solid, sturdy 4-drop. It's like nothing amazing to write home about. And again, its duty's not a good mechanic, so you very rarely want to use it because you generally want to be trading with this card. But the fact that it's got camouflage means, you know, people can't just use the 2-mana damage spell or whatever to kind of help ping it off, and they've got a trade, and it's pretty difficult to trick. So I think both of those are fairly decent in those sort of like middle game slots.
Yeah, I think Scout Sentinel is probably one of those duties where you can. It is pretty good at surviving to the next turn. It just depends if the opponent puts something down. But like, I see the duty more as like a bonus.
You don't care about it as much though, do you? Like, it's sort of like
you're just putting it down so your unit survives to the next turn, which it is fairly good at doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think if Standard Bearer didn't exist, this probably would be like one of the better 4-drops. I think it's just Standard Bearer is your better proactive 4-drop.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of competition in the 4-drop space as well. There's some pretty good stuff, but I play it in some decks. Bond Soldier's been a weird one. I thought this would be a really good card. I've found myself quite frustrated. It's sat in my hand, and I've almost found myself making plays just to play this, where because I'm almost just want to get rid of it. So point blank shot, which is similar in the Marines, is actually way more flexible. Like, being able to do 2 damage is it makes such a difference. I actually think, I don't know that I'd go and say this is a bad card, but I thought it would end up being a good or an S tier card, but I think actually it's more like, you know, it's okay.
Yeah, I think the problem is, like, you won't always have that like 3 HP unit for you to like swing into and then ping with this.
It's just sitting there and you wish it was a 3-drop.
Yeah.
Now the Astropath's an interesting one, because I like the design of the Astropath. It's a pretty cool design, like the shield, the camouflage. You can't use spells to remove it or target it. You can't use shield, and camouflage is interesting because you can't use a spell to get rid of the
you can't ping
the
it.
shield, right? So that's pretty nice. Terrible stats, obviously, but you know, you can build around the Astropath. So you could build a deck where you only have 4 stratagems, right? So the Astropath's going to guarantee it. I think obviously Denkler is the big winner with this card. I would definitely run 2 of them in the Denkler deck. Outside of Denkler, I don't think I would play this. I just think that you're probably losing a lot of tempo playing it, and you're not gonna get your duty off in a Denkler deck, I don't think.
I don't know. I mean, shield. I feel like the duty units. I mean, that stat line is designed to try and survive till the next turn. I don't feel it's a complete pipe dream to expect it to live a turn.
No, but I agree with that.
The thing is, at the end of next turn, will you be able to comfortably just use the duty? I think you have to. If you're playing Astropath, you have to just.
Yeah.
You're not playing Astropath to trade with stuff. You're using it for the duty.
You've got to, haven't you?
Yeah.
So it does make you think that you've got to be building it in a deck where, like, you don't want this in a tempo deck, right? Because it's got to be a deck where you can lose tempo when you do its shenanigans, but you know, I think it's more of a deck building thing where you go, I've only got 4 stratagems. Like, so you're guaranteeing those high power legendary stratagems, like Cadia stands. Speaking of stratagems, so the Siege Warfare, there's a big 10-drop that 10E spell that basically draws 2 vehicles from your deck and deploy them. So the Denkler deck that I released had like 4 vehicles in, and then it ran this, and it worked pretty well in that type of deck. I think this works really well in a deck where you are probably doing infantry and troops, and infantry and vehicles, right? And then the idea is that build it so you've only got big vehicles, and that's where this would then be worth it, because if this plays out a Lehman Russ and Rogaldorn, you know, that's 16 mana worth of tanks, and you just played it for 10. But I think you've got to be very deliberate in your deck building for this to be worth it. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely a card you build your whole deck around, which is awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think it's cool. Like, it's a very cool win condition, and obviously with some of the late game tanks like Rogaldorn and Baneblade, like you can accept your opponent having a few troops on the board if you're just putting out that much value, plus, you know, Vanguard and armor on your Warlord and stuff. I think it's just finding the turn to play it, and also just getting to E10 to actually do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think situationally good. Like, I think you definitely make a good Siege Warfare deck.
Yeah, yeah. And if you're like a beginner with a faction, I think this could be a really fun card, really fun end game finish. Now the Shock Trooper is it's a brilliant card. We're rating this as a card that you would put in your deck, right? So like, would you actually put it in as one of the 2 drops? I think that pulls it down a little bit. I wouldn't say it's a bad card. I think you can still put it in your deck, but I'd probably say situational, sort of 3-star. It's okay. Is about the right place for it. But it's there's so many ways to get this card, isn't there? Through defense stratagems, and it comes out of the banner bearers as part of that ability. So there's, you know, it's a key. It's almost a mechanic in the faction, isn't it? The Shock Trooper.
Yeah, I mean, I actually do think a Shock Trooper is a pretty good 2-drop. The reason is that you know, on turn 1, you put down your 3 HP unit. Your opponent probably puts down another 3 HP unit to counter it if they can't kill, if they don't like flank you immediately. And obviously his duty is designed so that you can Warlord back it, ping it for 1, and then, you know, he gets a cheat 1 little early game trade, and then you put your 3-drop down, and hopefully you can snowball off of that. So I think in like an aggro, in like a very aggro list, like Shock Trooper on turn 1 is actually not bad. I mean, in some ways, if you think of a situation like if you put like Cadia Medic down turn 1, and then Junith plays down her sister and bashes the medic, you know, the medic would probably if you to clear the sister, whereas the Shock Trooper doesn't. If that makes sense. But yeah, it doesn't scale super well into the late game. It has Vanguard, which is nice, but yeah, like nice on turn 1, not so nice in the later turns.
Alright, let's have a look at the good cards then. So the good cards, these are the 4 stars, these are the really good kind of, you're going to want to build, you know, happy days putting these in most of your decks. So the Recon Operation card I think is pretty good, right? It's like nice flexible. If you are coming up against stealth, you're playing like your regiment aggro type of deck, you've got units on the board but you can't attack, so you play this, suddenly they lose the stealth and you just trade quite nicely. Alternatively, it's a bit like the ultramarine card draw, isn't it? For only 2 energy, draw 2 cards, which I think is really, really worth it. So I think either way, like, you can't really go wrong with that card.
Yeah, I think, yeah, really, really good. Yeah.
Psyker's interesting, you know, like 5-drop, again with a shield, so 5 health and 5 range with a shield is pretty good. 3 melee's like not disastrous, but also you're kind of more likely to get the duty off. We've already said we're not a fan of duty, but you're more likely to get the duty off when the guy comes with a shield, right? And then he has a lot of flexibility because he can give the shield to another unit. Like, for example, a Rough Rider could come on, get a shield and trade, or you can do things like, say against a flyer, you can put 2 to 3 damage on that, and that can help finish things off. So it's kind of flexible, is what I found. I kind of found this card to overperform, I would say. Like, I didn't have that high expectations, but actually did pretty well in practice.
I think just gonna shout out Arcane Terror from our alliance. It's a good card in the mirror because the shield blocks the Godspear, in the late game.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
pretty. I guess in UNIF as well, the Exorcist.
Yeah.
I think I mean I think it's got good stats and the duty's pretty flexible. I think it's a good card.
Next up, we got the 3-drop summary execution. It's a bit like the not Will of Gork. It's a bit like the what No Mucking About.
Yeah.
But we have to kill a unit. Obviously, we've got things like Cadia stands where we can put out free troops. This has great synergy with that card. And obviously, there are going to be turns where it's just like a really cheap hard removal. Like if, in the mirror match, for example, when you're needing to kill Lehman Russers and Baneblades and stuff, this can be excellent. I think it's pretty good. And it's a bit clunky. But I think its effect is very powerful, so it's got to be decent.
Yeah, I think it's a good card.
Now, I did put Pinning Fire in there as well. Nice and cheap and cheerful. Deal 2 damage, stun an enemy. Good card.
Yeah, I think pretty. Yeah, I think it's a good. It's so flexible because you know you can either kill something or if you can't kill it, then at least you get to stun it. You can stun the Warlord. Yeah, I think it's a very very flexible card.
Abaddon. And he's
Yeah,
got
Abaddon with 6 melee.
and you've gone wide with your infantry and you're worried about vengeance and murderous desires and all that. You just shut him right down. Shut him completely down. Yeah, it's really good against Abaddon. Probably best against Abaddon. Full Throttle's been quite cool. Essentially like Hive. Is it Hive Factory in Space Marines?
Yeah.
I feel like it's basically that if you've got quite a tank heavy game. But tank heavy base, right? And Hive Factory is very good, so having 2 of those is very good.
I've not really played with it. I always kind of felt like the Faburn does a similar job, but it's like a unit and you can like do an advance. But I've not played with this card, so I can't really give much of an opinion on it.
It's basically like you want both. Like you say, Faburn does the advance thing. This can do it the same turn, and so you can have again. It's that ramp base, isn't it? It's like if you've played ramp in other games, like Ramp Druid in Hearthstone or whatever. Like it's that idea is in this faction. If you want to play big meaty tanks, you've got these cars like Full Throttle that can get you there much quicker, which is fantastic. Like cheating mana is very powerful. And speaking of big beefy cards, I actually went ahead and put the Baneblade as a good card. Now, am I crazy for that? I mean, it is blooming expensive to play, but
yeah, I mean, it's not a card you play in every. I would probably only play in a Siege Warfare deck personally, but I don't think I think it's pretty cool.
I love its ability. I love that kind of like make my Warlord 2 armor instantly and stuff. It's really cool. And the fact that if I look at it just as 10, I go, oh, it's so late, it's so hard. But when you've got Full Throttle in the deck, when you've got Bayburns in the deck, you're playing this for suddenly 8 or 9. I think it suddenly does become much more viable, but it's still big and slow. Kassakin. Regiment, deal 1 damage to a random enemy. If it dies, draw a card. I love this card. I've been really impressed with it. Helps you win the early tempo. It's different to the Rattling in that this can help you like burn as well. So you've got to look at this more like a burn card because it can hurt the enemy Warlord. The Rattling can't do that. But the Rattling is better at removal, right? Because you know where it's going to go. So they've both got like the pros and cons. But ultimately, I do think Kassakin's a good card.
Yeah, I think it's a good card. I think its big weakness is that if you're against Junif and they play Hallowed Martyrs, the Kassakin suddenly becomes this like massive liability. But outside of that, I'd say it's a pretty good card.
Yeah. Now, the Flamer is an interesting one because I'm kind of going in opposite direction of how we've done this whole thing. That, like, I have played quite a bit of Denkler, and this card is just so goddamn amazing in Denkler. I mean, I think this is S tier in Denkler. Like, it's that good. To be able to have that kind of effect for only 3 on tap is amazing. Be able to potentially do it multiple times is amazing. The problem is when you're outside of Denkler, you are relying on 2 things. You're either relying on move, and comboing, or you're relying on overwhelming the board and having, like, for example, 1 or 2, like an Ogrin or what's the 2-drop called? The Shock Trooper. And that you can just hide this guy and survive a turn. But we have said duty's not very good, but this is a very powerful ability. And get it off.
Yeah, I thought duty on like the cheaper bodies where you can combo them with the flank cards a bit easier. I suppose it is a bit easier to get off.
It is.
But the thing with Flame, like yeah, you're running it so it can get the duty off immediately, and then it's okay as long as you can get that.
Exactly.
Yeah, good and then clear. If you got move, then it's yeah, you can play it in other warlords, but I wouldn't play it if you're not running move.
Yeah. Now the autocannon's one of them, isn't it, where you play on 3, then they play on 4, like kind of destroyer or the possessed champion. You just think, oh no, and you just get completely blown out by those high melee flankers. But I found that this card is worth it at only 3 energy. It's a really big threat early on. Like your opponent has to deal with it, and it's not easy. You know, imagine you're going first. They've only had 1 turn before you've put this down. And I've found that range attack can get up to ridiculous numbers as well.
Yeah, it's a very, very scary unit. Yeah, at the end of the day, yeah, if it does get flanked and killed, it was only a free drop, so it's not like your whole deck was planning on it to survive.
Exactly.
I feel this is going first. This is probably a bit better because a lot of the melee flankers are kind of like on 4. Yeah, I think. Yeah, sometimes it can be like the big scary free drop, and compared to a lot of the guard units are a bit like low on stats, they're not very good at trading. But if your opponent puts down like a Carnifex or something, you can just like ram this guy's attack up to 6 or 7 and have it trade in, which the other guard units can't really do early on.
Yeah, it trades up very well. Oh, and we got the medic. The medic is card I revealed. I quite like this card. It's pretty acceptable stats for a 2-drop, and it just says regiment, heal 1 damage to a random friendly unit. That can include the warlord. I don't think it's like S tier or anything, but I think it's a pretty solidly reliable, consistent card.
I would maybe push back. I feel like very like getting the heal where you want it to go isn't consistent. Sometimes you like have a board where I don't know, if you got like a shock trooper on like 1 HP and you're shooting with a bunch of stuff, you're like, can you just push it back up to 3 so it buys the next turn, or you know, something like that.
It goes on your warlord.
Yeah, it goes on your warlord or something else. And also the animation takes forever. Like it's it's a little bit annoying.
Yeah.
You know, the little green ball like floating through the air slowly towards its target.
Yeah, like it's tossing in a Mars bar or a first aid pack or something. I could see. Yeah, you think it's 3 stars then?
I think yeah, maybe I would argue it's 3 stars. I don't think it. I think when you get the best value out of this is in a bit of a win more situation where you've already won the board and your medic's just there topping everything up. Then it's quite good, but then in that case a lot of things would be quite good.
I found it quite keen helping win when you're trying to fight for the early board, you know, when you're playing your tempo and they've got tempo. And I found them something like the medic, because if you think if you like the Ratling, it's kind of like the opposite of Ratling, because it's the Ratling's dealing damage to them, this guy's healing you, making it harder for the trade. I don't know. I kind of maybe I'm fanboying a bit much on it, but I kind of like it.
To be fair, guard, even in terms of the warlord heal, like guard do struggle to get HP back.
Yeah.
So maybe if this guy gives you like 2-3 HP, yeah, that might mean the difference between death or not in the late game.
You do have games where he does that. If you've got something down first turn, you drop this guy, and then you've got a Caskin, and it's like wait a minute, what to do with the Caskin? All of a sudden, warlord's just Lord Solar Leonis. I've got Lord Solar at 4 stars. Do you think that's about right?
So I played with him a little bit. I tried like a siege warfare deck similar to you. I think his ability is good. it's nice being able to kill stuff and also like buff your own HP up, so it feels quite awkward to trade in. Like when I played Ursula into a Leontis, you're there with a lot of free HP units, and you want to shoot at him and proc regiment, and he's there at his free stats. He's like, well, I don't want to like kill all my stuff. Or like, I guess I'll just wait and and he's spared himself some damage.
Yeah. 40 health. The +1/+1 him and all units until the start of next turn. I think there's a lot of power in this guy. I think he's not. I think he's underrated.
Yeah.
Underrated because his ability is not very sexy. It's kind of like, oh yeah, we've seen this before. But yeah, but we saw it on Ghazghkull. Ghazghkull was very good.
Do you think he's definitely like late game hero, or do you think he can be an aggro hero?
I think he potentially could do both.
Hmm.
I mean, I definitely think if you want to go down like the big tank late game, that he's the one for that. If no other reason that he's got the 40 health. Potentially he could lead an aggro as well, right?
I suppose his ability is a bit win more in aggro. But
it's a bit like a Storm of Fire though, built in, isn't it? Or
yeah.
I don't know. I want to play around with that more. Either way, I think he's a good card. He's a good warlord.
Yeah, I like that his ability costs 2 energy, but then if you need to take the turn off to play like KD stands or something, you can just use the duty instead if you've got a free HP
exactly.
unit to kill.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I like that as well. Now we got the Commissar Denkler. And the Commissar is healing himself or healing friendly unit, and this is the one who says duty give flank for friendly infantry. Now, unlike other duty stuff, he's already on the board. Your warlord can't be, so having a duty himself or herself is a big deal. I think it's 4 stars.
He's definitely not bad. I think his talent is a bit weird. I feel like his talent is the weak. Even though his talent is good, I feel like his talent is the weakest, just because just giving yourself 2 HP isn't doing much compared to like giving yourself a hand or buffing your stats to help you kill something. To be fair, when God got revealed, I think everyone thought it was going to be like Denkler into like Astropath and Tech Priest into all this like crazy ramp stuff, but that's not really happened.
Because the regiment's a lot easier to pull off, isn't it? People have just gone down that route, traded the board.
I don't know, I feel like everyone was still waiting for that like really crazy like Denkler deck. I don't think he's definitely not bad. I feel like maybe I'd have him as the weaker warlord, but yeah, I don't know, maybe like bottom of good.
Okay, so 2 more to get through. A good thing. So one is the ogre, which is a 5 energy. Comes with armor and 1 health, so that's quite important. He's got 4 range attack, 3 melee, and he has a blast attack, doesn't he? Blast 2, I think. Yeah, blast 2. Vanguard, nice. Okay, so pretty decent like stats, pretty decent with the armor on there, but it makes him a bit tough to remove. Also, it can automatically go to I don't know actually. I was going with that line of thought.
I think it's definitely a good 5 drop. You probably see this in most Imperial Guard lists.
Yeah.
The only side is with the that 5 HP 1 armor stat line. You are getting into cards like all the anti-armor cards will one-shot this, which is a bit unfortunate.
I didn't think about it.
I've definitely had this guy one-shot through and fire prism multiple times.
Oh no, yeah.
At least with Eldar, you can play him on 5 and be like, okay, well at least he can't get one shot. But against GSC, like all your like one armor cards are like really vulnerable.
That's really interesting. I didn't think about that because they've only recently designed that, so they will have been thinking about it. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. And what about the legendary? I've not got this card yet, but you have, right? Which is
Yeah, I got it.
Minkalesk.
Minkalesk.
And she
yeah, I like her.
makes everything cheaper, right?
She's yeah, I mean she's well started. I mean she's got the same stats as she's as tough and as powerful as an Orkz somehow. Even though she didn't look it. Yeah, I think she's good. She's a very scary unit. Your opponent will do everything they can to clear it. People don't want you having that ramp effect. If she does survive, you can do. Well, you don't even need her to survive. Combo her with Faeburn for free, which is awesome. You can play her on free and then play something like a Bonehead, or a Psyker on 4. Yeah, really threatening early drop. In the late game, you can kind of just tack her on to another infantry card you're playing. And her talent's not insane. She doesn't refill duty on your Warlord, but just giving +1 range to everything on a faction that is rewarded for shooting ranged is usually helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting her. I think like my infantry aggro deck's only going to get better with her.
Oh yeah, she fits right. She'll fit right at home in that.
She's going to pull off some of it. Combos.
I mean, another point. She's really good into. If you're against like GSC Sabotage, if you can get her down, even in like a regular mid-range deck, it can be so good because you can just play like your 3 drops and 4 drops like a turn off, and like clear the poison supplies or whatever. So if you get this down against GSC, that's like really gonna help you.
Yeah. Cool. So we've gone through our unplayables, our bads, situationals, and our goods. Okay, so Sliver and I got a little bit tired, and I'm picking this recording up on my own to finish the 5 stars. These are the must-have cards, guys. These are the S tier, real kind of standout stars of the faction, and we've got quite a few in the Astra Militarum. So let's get to it. All right, so the first one is the Rattling. Now the Rattling is a 2-drop, and it reads: Regiment, deal 1 damage to a random enemy troop. The reason why I do think this is an S tier is that in the early game, in these cheap minions, you are often engaged in a real battle, real tug of war to establish dominance on board, to win the tempo war. And the Rattling is so good because that's exactly what it helps you do. It has 3 health, so the enemy warlord can't just remove it. And the fact that it specifically says that the 1 damage goes on troops, unlike the Cassacrin, which is just a random enemy, means that you can plan more effectively with the Rattling when you're trying to remove your opponent's troops. Now next up we've got the Vox Operator, which says when you deploy a vehicle, give it flank. Now everybody else around me tells me how great this card is. Now I personally haven't had like a ton of success with it when I've tried, and to be fair, I haven't played lots of games of this, right? And I found some of the combo decks with it a little bit inconsistent, but like I said, that's a very small sample. Many people, good players around me who have played many more games than me, assure me it's a really, really great card. And of course, when you look at the amount and the quality of vehicles that Astra Militarum has, it's probably the best vehicles in the game, and certainly like quantity and quality. Obviously, that makes a card like Vox Operator very, very good. In addition to that, some of these tanks have duty, and therefore the Vox Operator is the only way of deploying them on the board and playing their duty on the same turn. Next up, we got the Godspear Warhead. This is the hard removal of the faction, isn't it? This is the let's reset the board. It's super powerful. It's Will of Gork, but better, because it's only affecting your opponent's board, it's not destroying your board, which means that if you're in a kind of even board state, kind of like a bit of a tug of war, that's the ideal thing. Then you get to use this. You remove his board, you've still got yours, and now you're ahead. So Warhead is just a fantastic card. Really, really powerful, can help you come from behind. Yeah, it can get rid of Vanguard, stealth, all that good stuff. So it's kind of simple, but it's just really good, effective, hard removal. It is expensive. So, you know, there's that to bear in mind, but I think this is a legendary worth having. And speaking of legendaries worth having, the High Command is another for S tier. The High Command it isn't particularly effective in the early game. You're going to get most value from this once you've got like 8 energy or more, 7 energy or more. You can kind of play something out, then play this, go back up to full energy. It basically allows you to cheat mana and play for tempo. And anything that does that is powerful in a card game. So it's not my favourite mana cheat in the game, but it's certainly effective, and specifically into the deeper into the late game. So it has to get that kind of 5-star from me. The Rogel Dawn tank is one that's just impressed me the more I've thought about it and the more I've used it. I think a lot of the tanks are impressive in this faction, but this is the one with Vanguard. You know, with 2 armor and 9 health with Vanguard, that is a real, absolute mountain your opponent's got to move. So they either have the hard removal, or it's kind of like a win con just dropping this. It's really, really good. And also, I've been quite surprised by its regiment ability, which says give 1 range attack to your units every time someone triggers regiment. So if you've got a few units, including your Warlord, like the first one attacks, they all get +1. The second one attacks, they all get +1 again. So you can actually build a pretty... It is, again, it's a win con. Really powerful. Lehman Russ tank is excellent. It fills so many roles. I like running it. 2 of them as my kind of top end of my aggro decks, right? You've taken the board, you attack with range, and they get lots of pings, lots of the kind of deal 2 damage to a random enemy that the Lehman Russ has. It triggers that. So it's just a great tank. Good stats, good armor, good life. Yeah, solid. It's like a really solid 7-drop. Now, Nork, I have literally just unlocked today and played a few games with him and loving him so far. It's a 6-drop that plays really well, particularly into the... well, to be honest, he probably plays really well in most decks. I'm playing him at the minute in my kind of late game tank decks, and he's really great because sometimes he pulls out hard removal, which you're laughing at because you're going to follow it up with these big tanks. So, yeah, I think Nork's really solid. Solid Vanguard, armor, good stats, and of course his talent to make your Warlord invulnerable is also pretty good because it can mean that your Warlord can then trade, especially if you're playing solar. So you could play the Warlord talent, making it have 3 attack, and then attack like something big like a Venom Crawler and not take any damage. So yeah, I really like Nork. Chimera's excellent if you're going to run infantry, if you're going to run low to the ground, kind of more aggro-y based decks. The Chimera's superb. Really good, giving everything the armor, can hide behind the shock trooper, and the duty is well, it's phenomenal value that's packed into that 6-drop. And the Tech Priest Agency, I wasn't sure about this. I wasn't sure whether to put this as a 4-star or a 5-star. I think ultimately ramp is powerful, right? Like being able to cheat things out early. And this guy in the Denkler deck you can sometimes get his ability off more than once. So I think just for that alone, it's good. People also forget the heal ability. It can heal your vehicles. So, you know, clearly you're not playing this guy in a non-vehicle deck, but I think that he does work well, even in non-Denkler decks. I think this guy is worth it. I don't know whether he is. I don't know whether he really is 5-star or 4. There is an argument he's only 4 stars, but I do think that I put him in the 5 because I think that ramp is so powerful. Being able to get something out a turn early is big, and obviously combining with Full Throttle, for example, or the Feign, Bayburn, Vanquisher, he could be getting something out several turns early. Now, the Atlan Rough Rider is a great flanker, right? Because if you haven't got if you haven't played Cadia Stands Down, which has anti-synergy with the Rough Rider, this guy can actually attack twice, and that's bonkers. So good, so good. Yeah, just a bit of anti-synergy with Cadia Stands, but you know, pretty solid 4-drop flanker. Most factions have some like a 4-drop flanker, and we're no different, except for ours can attack twice potentially. I think the Ogrin is S tier. You can't ask for much more from a 3-drop, right? Just solid stats, perfect health per energy cost, and Vanguard, right? So it works in defense, it works in aggro. You just basically should be playing Ogrins in every single Astra Militarum deck. And I actually think the Veyburn Vanquisher's kind of similar case, really. I think it doesn't matter whether you're playing loads of big units and you're trying to get the tanks cheaper. I think even just making an Ogrin cost 2 gives you good value. So I think the Faeburn is really good. You can play it the same turn as a unit you want to make cheaper, just basically essentially making Faeburn free. But I think the better way to use him is to, or use her, is to basically play the card to make, you know, like a future turn, be able to play a card earlier. I think that's the better way of using it. Ursula Creed is proving to be the kind of top dog in the Warlords. I do think Solo's not far behind her, but she does offer that flexibility with giving you access to the full stratagem pool, meaning you never run out of cards, meaning you can always kind of adapt to the situation. The other thing is her duty is superb. Her duty of deploying a shock trooper is really powerful. It can really, it can mean that aggros start with like super fast out the blocks. It can mean that you can put that Vanguard down to block something like the Tech Priest engine seer. When that comes down, you want it to survive a turn. There's lots of combos. So Ursula's very, very good. Cadia Stans is superb. Personally, I know a lot of people have mixed. This seems to be the one that stirred the most emotions in the community and the most controversy. But personally, I think as a card, as it is on its own, I think it's a good card. I don't think it's broken. I think it's strong but not broken. And definitely a 5-star, definitely a must-have, really good legendary. Particularly when you're running like the later game decks. I wouldn't run it. If you look at my Ursula infantry deck, it doesn't run that because the loss of tempo, I'm never going to get it back because I'm looking to end the game E6, E7, and Cadia Stans is no good in that type of deck. But in the slightly later game decks, Cadia Stans is excellent. The one thing I do wish is that you couldn't get it from Ursula. I think the community is right to not be outraged, but to have some issues with that. Because regardless of what you think in terms of the power level, it's not good for the game, right? Like, having 3-4 Cadia Stans, that's not healthy. That's not a fun game for anyone, really. And I think we shouldn't be able to do that. So, if Ursula's talent just said that she could basically draw any non-legendary stratagem, I think that would fix it. Dead simple. Just keep legendaries one-offs, right? Like, stop finding these ways to break the game. And last but not least, I think the Cadian Standard Bearer is an absolute must-have S-tier 5-star card. I think for 4 energy, this card is superb. Is literally putting out 8 health. 8 health worth of bodies across 2 bodies for 4 energy. There's nowhere else in the game that can do that on 4. I think the next closest is the Venom Throw-Up in the Tyranids, which is 6 health. But it's so much value. It's so much value. It's so much. Sorry, not just value. It's tempo as well. It's value and tempo because, you know, you're racing for the board. Well, good luck to your opponent. Like if you've played Ursula's ability and a medic or something, or a Rattling on the first turn, and then you've played Ogrin the second turn, and then you play Standard Bearer. I mean, that's a hell of a tempo start, guys. Like, that is really difficult for your opponent to beat. So, yeah, I think the Cadian Standard Bearer is excellent. So, there you go, guys. That is it. Overall, like I say, a bit disappointed with the duty mechanic. I kind of saw that coming because playing a lot of Sisters of Battle, I kind of knew that was going to be a tough mechanic. A fun one, but a tough one to make work. However, if you do love that mechanic, you definitely want to be playing Denkler because that is the Warlord. Fortunately, they have made a Warlord that helps with it this time. So, that's good. Regiment's very powerful, a lot of fun. The tanks, the late game, there's a bit of power creep in the late game, but I don't mind that. I actually think that's a really positive move for the game, and that's where I'd like to see the power creep, not happening at, you know, turns 2 and 3. So the deck, the faction as a whole is quite flexible. There seems to be quite a lot you can do, and there seems to be fewer bad and unplayable cards, which is obviously a really positive step. So hope you like this. Please hit the like and subscribe. If you've enjoyed this content, go and check out some of my deck guides that I've got for Ursula, for Lord Solar, and also for Denkler. They're up on my channel right now. If you do want to support the channel more than subscribing to the channel, we do have a Guild Warden program where you can join that on YouTube. You get access to my videos and content immediately when they go up. Often that can be a week, as much as a week before everybody else, but sometimes it's 24 hours. But the point is you're getting stuff early and you're supporting the channel. And of course I am up on Twitch as well, so I do appreciate everybody who is supporting me through Twitch Primes, Subprimes and all that sort of stuff. So thanks for that, and yeah, keep the comments coming. Always love interacting with you guys in the chat, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.